Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This week, we've got an exclusive interview with Manu, the founder and CEO of Sponstar, the fractional sponsorship marketplace. Sponstar enables small and mid-sized brands to access high-profile sponsorship opportunities traditionally dominated by large corporations. By bridging physical events and digital experiences, Sponstar empowers brands, events, and audiences alike, creating a seamless and accessible sponsorship marketplace for all stakeholders. Manu previously co-founded Alpha and Alpha.io, where she changed the way companies connect with their fans, using Web3 to help enterprises connect people, content, and experiences. She's been in the tech and collectibles sector for the past 10 years, successfully raising funds from venture investors such as Metaprop, Lightspeed, Chingona Ventures, and Gaingels, amongst others. With a background in finance, Manu worked as an equity analyst at Gávea Investments, one of Brazil's most reputable investment management firms in the earlier days of her career. Notably, Manu was named by Bloomberg in 2022 as one of the top 100 most influential Latinos and Latinas worldwide, one of the top 10 people to watch in Fintech in 2023, and one of the 33 under 33 entrepreneurs in 2018 in New York City. Born in Rio de Janeiro, Manu now resides between Los Angeles and Hawaii. In this episode, Manu and I riff on how her early career in traditional finance and her passion for music inspire the creation of Sponstar, what fractional sponsorship means and why it's a game changer for the event and brand ecosystems, the role of blockchain and AI in creating a better ROI for brands and enhance engagement for event goers, why Manu believes giving more away strengthens a startup's potential, the challenges and opportunities for women founders in tech and crypto fundraising, and how spirituality and the concept of surrender guide Manu in her personal and professional life. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Listen, Manu, are you ready to come out of stealth?
Kind of, Pete. We're here talking, and this is officially the first press shindig that I'm doing. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate, kind of coming out of stealth with you. We're going to maintain some mystery around us.
All right. We will keep some mystery. It's always good to have that. And that we will call you Manu, and we will leave it at that. But before we get into you pulling the sheet off of your new project, take us through your backstory. I know you grew up in Brazil. I know you had an early start in TradFi. I dug into the project that you were running before with Alpha. Tell me, how did you get to this point?
Oh, man, it was, divine alignment. Let's put it this way. So it's kind of ironic that our new token is called Star because it was always written in the stars. This was what I was supposed to do because it really is, this project, a perfect union of my very quirky background. So I started my career in finance and I worked at a major hedge fund, which was very macro forward. And the founder of the fund was actually with George Soros when Soros broke the British pound. If any history buffs in there, you should kind of really look into that moment because my prediction or whatever is that we are going to experience something very similar in the next couple of years of the US dollar and crypto. And it really is kind of when the masses want to move. I had a teacher in economics school that used to say, you can't stop people when people want to do something, right? No government, it's stronger than its people. And at the time, I looked at commodities. So I was reading Mark Rich's bio, King of Oil, and another interesting topic for people to look up to. Mark Rich actually came up with the spot oil market in the 60s. And I just knew that there were so many similarities between how that market operated and how the creative economy still operates to this day. It's a very small number of players that controls all of the information, gatekeeps pricing, and, does all sorts of things. And really, it's not, beneficiary to the creative economy. And I grew up as a musician. I wanted to study music at 17, and my parents were like, that's the one thing we will not help in any way. And so I ended up taking 2 gap years and ended up in economics, but I never stopped with music. I've been, a DJ, a performer for many years. So I'm very proficient with the event space. It's been kind of a second part of my life. And the DJing has paid for so many moments in which the tech companies were really not the main source of income because, we hadn't raised funding or, the investor disappeared or whatever had happened. And so, I had like a couple of people that worked with me in the past. They're like, oh my God, it's almost like you should open your own events company because you do it so well. And, so I've been doing events for many years. I've been working with brands for many years. I've done a lot of consulting for brands, and there were a couple moments this year that were really shocking to me in terms of what was happening in the brand physical event ecosystem, right? We saw the NFL Players Association during the Super Bowl this year cancel an event the week of the Super Bowl because they couldn't raise enough sponsorship dollars to pay for the venue in a casino in Vegas. We saw celebrity-operated events that were struggling to raise the right amount of funding. And so I decided to take a closer look into the sponsorship ecosystem and found out that it was a $7 trillion market, huge market, that was barely touched by technology. Nobody had kind of like even looked at it. There's all these Web3 companies trying to come into loyalty, myself included. That's what I tried to do before. And nobody's looking at this huge ass market here that has so much to benefit from blockchain technology. And so we developed this model that we call fractional sponsorship, where we can take big sponsorship tickets at the world's leading events and chop them down into bite-sized pieces so that small and mid-sized brands can play in that world. And that's what the new project, Sponstar, does. And our token Star is the currency that powers the entire thing because we're distributing rewards for people as a kind of like clear incentive mechanism so that, they actually go and engage with brands on site. We're giving the brands our unparalleled ROI of what people are engaging with their product, what they want, what they don't want, even as a product discovery tool. And for the events, we're generating additional funding, which is a big part of it, and we come in for free. And we're giving them also, once again, unparalleled data, heat map analysis. What are people doing within your event? How much time do they spend at the main stage? How much time did they spend at the keynote? And this is all made possible because we literally pay people in Star, our token, for, their interactions. So it's a pretty cool kind of like moment to be in where all of these different parts of life have collided into one project.
I love it. It's great. Tell me more about the problem, right? I get the context of the NFL Players Association canceling, right? And they had to, and sponsors running an end around, no pun intended. And small and medium-sized brands, right? I'm interested in how they get crowded out of visibility at big events. And I was recently at DevCon in Bangkok last week, and I saw, there were sponsors everywhere, everything. And I didn't even start thinking about, was this a big enough event for this brand to be sponsoring? I went to one where I saw a big name and I thought, okay, they're definitely going to be at this event. They're sponsoring it. They weren't there. It was tiny. It was nothing. It was a little, barely any kind of event whatsoever. And so I can see how any type of brand may not be getting allocated to the right events, may not be getting the eyeballs on the brand at events, because this thing can be such a crapshoot. Beyond that, you've got the actionable data that the sponsors want. I talked to somebody last year who was applying to Techstars Web3, and what they were doing was they would bring sponsors in for esports gaming tournaments, and what they were building was something that they would measure the amount of eyeballs. And it sounds disgusting, but they would measure the amount of people that came in to watch the esports tournament, and they would only require the sponsor to pay if they hit the targeted amount of viewership. And that was it. And they were able to do this using blockchain. And
that's cool.
Okay. The whole idea was to be able to provide the sponsors with the data on who is attending, who is coming in. Obviously, it's pseudonymous because it's all wallet addresses. It's not actually names, but they're able to at least get that type of data, right? And that, so that combination of, can we get the right visibility for brands at events? And can we also give those sponsors, those brands, the data so they can actually do something with this after the event, right? Solving those two problems at the same time seems like a very hard task to undertake.
No, 100%. But it's more than that, right? I feel like, one, the war for attention, as you defined it, is perfect. And that's not just a problem that, people are going through in event world. We're going through that in everyday life, in markets, in, retailers, in the internet. The war for attention is just like, it's bizarre. And the second part is there's an access issue, right? So your small, mid-sized brand usually cannot sponsor Coachella. They'd have to come up with $1 million or something and kind of like be able to come into Coachella. And by creating opportunities, which are a middle layer between the physical real estate of the event and a digital experience, you open up a whole gamut of things that are made available, right? And then on top of that, by using AI to ingest all of that first party data and create paths that are exclusive for you, Pete, maybe you like a nice cold beer. So we'll send you on a bar hop and you'll collect extra points for every beer you take. And, every kind of like part of the feedback loop that you answer, we'll even send you to the bar with the shortest line. So that's an incredible experience. You got free stuff, you got what you wanted, and you're at, the spot that you wanted to be. And that's an incredible experience for the brand as well, because they know that they invested, I don't know, $2 for you, but you're already spending $6. So you have an immediate ROI converter on site, right? And if it's a new user, maybe then it's an opportunity for we did a Spurs scavenger hunt and the bar was actually sponsored by Michelob Ultra. So what we suggested, we didn't do it because we didn't have enough time, was that we would actually have not just a check-in point, but we'd have some sort of kind of like golden ticket within the check-in point, and someone would get a round of beers for all their friends. And so that kind of like also adds a layer of fun and engagement. And, people love having fun. People love competing with one another. They love being the one that got that round of beer, And so there's a lot that we can do, and that will drive better traffic, that will give real ROI, and that will allow marketing departments to be able to expand their budgets, because right now their budgets are being cut. Because there's not a lot of examples like the one that you cited where, they have actionable insights on how many people actually engaged with their product within a physical event. Like we built the Web3 program for Ape Water, and we've put that NFT in every can, and we built their point systems for bananas with my previous project. And it was really cool to add a layer of impact tracking in there as well. So that's another element which I think, the world's going to see a lot more of in the conscious capitalist model, right? So every single can was a single-use plastic bottle that you eliminated, and you're actually counting within your, we called it, I think, an ape wallet or a vault or something, where they were counting it, the number of bananas, and the number of bananas were directly proportional to how many plastic bottles you eliminated and how much is being donated to charity on your behalf. So there's also kind of like that element of bragging rights that can be expanded through charity and through kind of like for good campaigns. So the potential is endless. I'm digressing here, but the point is, with real-time traceability in data and geofencing and knowing what people are actually doing, and by providing direct incentives for the people to give you more data and to answer simple questions, the amount of engagement that you can get is endless.
Definitely. I get that. And there's, you mentioned the San Antonio Spurs, a few minutes back, and anything that you're doing where you're trying to incentivize people that are coming from completely disparate backgrounds, but that trying to get them to all do the same thing is incredibly hard. But when they're all passionate about the same thing, that tends to be a little bit easier. For example, sports fans. Is there a market segment that you're starting with for Sponstar that you think will allow you to move fast with establishing your MVP into the market, so that you can then attract other segments after that?
I wouldn't say there's a segment. It's so funny because we, even our whole marketing team put together this whole concept of the brackets, where, the Sponstar really is an empty bracket and it could fill in any sort of event, because all physical events have the same problem. So I would say that's our niche. It's physical events. But if it's conferences, music festivals, art shows, the sky is the limit, because all physical events struggle with the same problems.
Yeah, I'd say, I've always just tried to plug into the passion. And where is that? Yes, there's tons in sports. There's tons in music. There's even tons in crypto conferences. as you know, right? That
Yep.
people get very excited. When you decided that you wanted to do this, as you mentioned, realizing that there's a problem in the market, I think you said a $7 trillion market, something to solve here.
Yep.
That how did you go about pulling the team together? What were some of your first steps in order to do that?
Wow. This is a great question, actually, Pete, because I feel like the secret sauce behind any company is its team. And obviously, there's people that I've known for years that I've been waiting for an opportunity to work with. We had some incredible early advisors and investors that, really kind of like segued the door and brought in, to your point, we have industry experts in every field. We have the former head of innovation of Ogilvy is one of our angel investors and, a super connector there. And obviously he brings in full experience with brands. He prepares projects for Cannes Lions. So, we're most likely going to go to Cannes next year and do a big thing with, Ogilvy or Collins or, one of the WPP teams. I have another advisor that does the merch for all of the festivals. So he does the merch for Coachella, for X Games, for, and so that opens a lot of doors. And by integrating a NFC into his merch, that can also be used for our scavenger hunt. So that's massive network effect there, right? And I can go on and on. We have the former CTO of Near Protocol, which helps us with security. We have an incredible advisor that I can't reveal the name, but who wrote the Bitcoin white paper with Satoshi. So he brought in a whole other insight in terms of kind of like cryptography and, or kind of like our dual token system. And so we're just very blessed to have a huge group of people around us. Like I was going through the tokenomics yesterday with a fund and I showed them the team allocation list and they're like, oh my God, that's a huge team. And I was like, yeah, that's a huge team. But what I find is the more I give away, the more I get.
Tell me more on that point. The more you give away, the more you get.
People are, especially if they're single founders, they want to hold on to so much of the equity and so much of the token supply because if they think it gives them some sort of false sense of power. And at the end of the day, it's like you're just limiting your external potential. It's the same thing as like, why would you raise a token with 1 million tokens as your total token supply, right? That would mean that you're kind of like you're limiting your perception of value. Versus we just decided that we're going to go up. We were going to launch with 100 million, and now we're going to do 1 trillion because it was the whole meme coin shit show, which we can tell.
Yeah.
We can go down that alley at some point because I have a lot of opinions on how meme coins are NFTs 2.0, and so many people will get hurt. And at the end of the day, it detracts value from us, real projects, sort of real infrastructure that are making real changes and are the mass adoption catalyst for this cycle. But I digress. So did I answer your question or is there any point in there?
You did, no. And that it's, in a nutshell, what I'm getting, Manu, is that you've just spent so much time, earning your bones in the industry, right? Meeting such great people along the way. Was it, hey, I'm only going to work with people that I really like and set the bar high?
Yeah, 100%. No asshole policy. Yeah. I've had some assholes in the past and they poisoned the entire well. It doesn't even matter if they're the best in what they do, if they're a 10x coder or whatever it is. There are no asshole policy is like really strong. We also do a month experience and see if any new person is a fit with the existing team. We don't want to disrupt the existing team. And low salaries, high variables, and the financial model background, like in terms of how to drive incentives. And everybody has a little bit of equity or a little bit of a token supply. Everyone's locked up. No one is unlocking a TGE, not even me. And, build a strong culture that believes in what you're doing and that sees the element of disruption. I think some of our team is so senior that this is a little bit of a stretch to say, but even, I think for a lot of the people in our team, they see this as our big one, we're just very lucky to be here. We're very happy. And it's so funny that we filed the USPTO trademark for Star. It was available.
Wow. Wow. That's good. That's good that it was. When did you actually hit go on the project, Manu? When was that?
I quit from my previous role, and I quit because of a kind of like a mess with a former co-founder that hadn't been involved in the business for 3 years, but was still kind of like trying to call the shots and block things. And, we had a 2-person board, which was the biggest mistake of my life. So if anyone here is, putting a company together, do not ever have a 2-person board.
Yeah.
I learned that one the hard way. And so I quit in August, took a beat to breathe. And then we just started building. We could have never built, obviously not everything is built. Like, Hallborn did our security audit, our governance token is ready to go, and our kind of like basic platform is ready to go, but there's a lot more building that needs to be done. But we could not have built a project so quickly without AI. It's kind of amazing what, ChatGPT has done for us as founders, like how quick you can turn things around if you're crafty in the way that you're calling your prompts, and exactly kind of like the parts of like, of endless painful labor that used to exist. Now we can have like, optimize a lot of that and take on a more strategic role. And so I think our team is a perfect example of that. It's a lot of very senior people, a couple juniors, and a lot of automation and AI across the board.
Yeah, I love this. And we had a project that came through our Techstars Web3 Accelerator last year, Beezy, and it's same story. Like just, very determined founder and co-founder that said, we know what we want to build, we're going to go. And they got together in September after, knowing each other for years. And by November, they were completely organized, raised a few $100,000 by January. And then we came in March and they're off to the races. Testnet live in April, mainnet live in July. Boom, in the market, right? Just because they knew exactly what they wanted to do, you know?
Exactly. And that was also a big lesson from like so many different concepts that I've built in the past, right? Like from art to Web3 loyalty to, working with all of these brands, is this time around, we wanted to get laser focused. We're like, okay, fractional sponsorship. That's what we're doing. How do we deploy fractional sponsorship? Oh, we deploy it through these, gamified treasure hunts. Oh, awesome. And so what are the different components that we need to build? We need a front end to have a matchmaking quiz between the companies and the events. We need a dashboard so that, the events and companies can track ROI in real time. And we need a wallet so that users can go and engage in the real world without having to have zero crypto knowledge. And we're going to use zero ZKP technology so that, everything is cryptographed and that we're maintaining privacy. Okay, what are the tools that are available out there? Oh, there's an incredible on-ramp platform. Let's use them. Oh, there's Hallborn that does incredible smart contract security. Let's use them. Oh, such and such does this, such and such does this. So we have this kind of like incredible belt of tools available to us right now in Web3 that we did not have in the previous bull run. So that means that, we can launch dApps with incredible user experience faster and adapt faster. So, it's really what a time to be alive, Pete, because I'm just grateful to be here. And I'm just grateful to have, so many amazing people that, just trusted in this vision and that got the whole thing up and running.
That's fantastic. And how is the whole fundraising process going so far? You said that
fundraising is such a pain. Whenever I see a founder that says, "Oh, I love fundraising," I'm like, "You're lying."
Nobody does.
Nobody does. But
it's just like saying, "I love walking across hot coals. I love walking across a bed of nails."
Yeah, exactly.
Pain is my
I love
friend.
it. I just love walking across a bed of nails. But we closed a pretty awesome angel round in 30 days. Also, really fast. Never done it before. And now we're walking into seed and a TGE. So hopefully by early next year, we'll be running, not walking.
What do you think were the components, the recipe to this, to being able to raise your angel round in 30 days?
Luck played a huge part of it. Okay. Obviously, the market's much better to raise right now than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Incredible product, to be very honest. Like, just the attrition of this product is out of this world. Every brand expert that we speak to, like, loses their, shit. Whenever we show it to them, they're like, "Oh my God, this is going to change the entire advertising world. Do you know what you've built?" And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And so, that incredible product, it's the time for this product to exist. It really is a huge pain point. And when we use technology to solve existing problems and not build technology to then find a problem, you'll find that you'll scale fast.
Is there a difference, and I'm going way off topic here, but this just got me. Is there a difference between the external outgoing fundraising, sell, commercial Manu and the one who's executing and leading the team and getting shit done?
Yeah, 100%. I'm very honest with my team. Like when things are not going well, I let them know, even if it's my fault, or if it's like anyone else's fault. We're very honest, and like it's a pretty horizontal process, but it is not a full democracy. I'm still the boss. That's the most important part. They know. And and that's important, right? When you're running a company, someone needs to be the boss, because the boss needs to be accountable for when things go wrong. It's always our fault when things go wrong. And the boss needs to be accountable for everyone else's survival. I also pay myself last. So there's months that I don't get paid at all if there's not enough money, and it's like, you got to take care of your family. On the other hand, with investors, I feel like you need to show a stronger hand, right? Investors panic very easily. If you tell them that things are not going right, they'll usually go a little crazy. It's better to kind of like filter a lot more of what you bring to the investors and ask for their help when you really need their help, and have a very specific ask versus, to be so open, brainstormy, etc. It's just like in your best interest, don't give them too much of anything. And the same thing with the good news, right? Because if you give them like an incredible kind of like deal that's like still not signed, and then that deal falls apart, they're going to want to ask you like, where's that deal? Where's that deal? So I'd say that my lesson was to say a lot less and to hear a lot more from investors. And with the team, you can still be the commanding voice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hear you. What I've seen with boards and with investors, that the board meeting should never be the place where they're either hearing good news or bad news for the first time.
Yeah.
And that,
prepare that meeting, for the love of God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a great podcast that I got turned on to recently. It's called The Startup Solution. And it's, 15, 20, 30 vignettes on different stories of where founders took a wrong turn and what they did about it. I was talking to an old school, like crypto OG founder, and we were just getting into the context of trying to get founders to avoid mistakes. Obviously, failing and failing fast is important. You learn from your mistakes. But if they're easy things that you can be guided not to do, then that's a good thing. And it's far easier to influence founders to avoid mistakes than it is to try to get them to emulate the successes of other people who have been very successful.
And success is nonlinear, right? Everybody thinks that a formula for success is going to work for them. That's not the case. Everybody has their own story. If you look at a lot of the great success stories, they're usually later in life. A Walmart, great father, etc., really hit it after 40. Same with like, Nikola Tesla. And these were times that, people didn't even live that long. So it's give yourself some time and some patience, and things will fall into path. And listen to the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. I have a tattoo in my arm that says, try something different, surrender. And it's a good reminder to me that if things aren't working in one direction, maybe they're not supposed to work. Stop trying to force things into place. Let things fall into place on their own, and it'll be a much more pleasant ride, and you'll build better products, and you'll, give people what they want, not what you want.
And on the investor topic still, Manu, that when you and I spoke a few weeks back, you said that you never had a lead investor. And I've seen scenarios where you don't really need a lead with, say, a big party round. And there are other situations where you do need one. And all the lead investor does is that they're a big enough investor writing a big enough check into the right size round where they can afford to pay for the legal DD and write the check to the lawyer to actually give them the comfort that all the boxes are ticked here from a legal perspective. And which scenario did you fall into when you opened up this angel round and got it done, and when you had your prior fundraising experience as well with the last project? How can you unpack that for me?
Yeah, as I said, never had a lead. Trying to change that on this project because some of the exchanges get a little nervous when you don't have a lead, when you're going into kind of like real tier one, right? Kraken, Coinbase Finance, which we're looking to do early next year already. And so it's interesting, right? For whatever reason, women tend to have more pulverized rounds because it's harder for us to get the same check sizes as men. A lot of it is just hidden biases from the person on the other side of the table that's writing the check, because they want to write the check to someone that they understand, that looks like them, that thinks like them, etc. So I feel like the rise of female GPs helps. Female GPs don't usually lead rounds because female GPs suffer the same problems as us with their LPs. They can't get big enough checks to raise big enough funds so that they can lead rounds. And so it's a cycle of kind of like, the perpetuating the problem until we as women and female founders start to prioritize putting female GPs in our cap table so that they can make it big when we become unicorns too. So I obviously have a lot to say on this topic of like the disparity. And I'll just leave you with some stats because, men usually are kind of like, no, there's no way. And not you, maybe the listeners. And I'm sure you know the stats, Pete, because, you're a well-informed dude. But women in this day and age receive 2% of venture capital dollars. But at the same time, we produce, I believe, 16% of unicorns or 12% of unicorns. It's a crazy freaking multiplier, meaning we get crafty and we do a lot more with the dollars that are offered to us because, only the best get through. Only 2% of dollars, are offered. And it's, I would say, probably close to 50% of founders are women. And so it leads to very creative components in how we accept venture capital. It's, there's a lot more women that do equity crowdfunding and all sorts of crazy things because we have to. And so, hopefully that'll change. Hopefully we will have a lead in Sponstar now that we have a lot more experience and this incredible kind of like team of humans. And, I've been doing this for a decade at this point. So, I'll report back on that one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, just kind of unpacking the diversity side of this as well. I mean, that, you go beyond startups and you go into Web3 crypto startups and it's just even more out of whack.
Yeah.
Even more out of whack. How do we change this?
So I'll tell you what I did. Okay. So I went to ETH Denver in 2022, I think. And I was so shocked, Pete. It was like 25 dudes to every girl in like every single event. I went to some of the worst parties of my life. And I was like, oh my God, we got to do something about this. This is a real problem. And so I created a game as a joke called Crypto Bros. And we used the concept of reversed scarcity as a tool to create the point systems around our game, right? And so what I did is and they were all based out of real people. I got into a ton of trouble for this game. Like, it was really funny. The real Crypto Bros were really upset about what we had done.
It's okay.
So it was SBF was in there, I remember, and SBF was worth 1 point. And then if you found like a female founder, she was worth 50 points. If you had a black female founder, she was worth 150 points. And we kind of like really ran with it. And it was really funny. We took all of the screens inside the Javits Center at NFT NYC and populated with real life crypto bros.
That's awesome. That's the only way you can draw attention to it. My partner in crime with Techstars, Hugh McGurr, he was at Token 2049. And one of the posts that he put up during that was something to the effect of, I just walked from the entry door to the outside to the internal door. And I think I heard the word bro 25 times in those 10 feet between the two doors.
But the problem is, it's like, it starts from just like childhood, right? When you're growing up as a little girl, I grew up in Latin America as a little girl, and I just heard all the time that it wasn't my place. It wasn't my place to order food. My dad would have to kind of like address the server directly. We'd have to tell the male parent, and my mom would tell him the same as well. To like, it's like, it's really crazy, Pete. It's really crazy because, a white male just has no idea how much harder it is from kind of like inception and how much better you have to do. There was a cartoon in the New York Times. It was like a race between a professional businesswoman and a professional businessman. And there were two lanes, right? So the women's lane had like crocodiles and like freaking puddles and like all sorts of crazy things that you needed to jump over. And like the male lane was just like clean. And someone was saying, but it's the same distance.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. I mean, my sister is a rocket scientist, and she shared stories on, being in meeting rooms and where she extends to shake somebody's hand that she's meeting for the first time. And like, they hand her a coat, you know,
Yeah.
it's,
And that's
it's a messed up world.
good for
But
her, though. Good for her. She did it. She's a rocket scientist. Like
she is.
she
Absolutely
probably
is.
has a 220 IQ.
I'm very, very proud of her, but I will, I digress. But turning the corner a bit, Manu, when I look at the life of you online, it shows a lot of music, right? Some mandolin, a bit of drums, DJing, big gigs, events, and also some more reflective content as well. And I can get into that a bit. But in reading between the lines here, with what you're ultimately delivering to the world with Sponstar, that it feels like you're just trying to make this whole puzzling work-life balance just, hey, pull the border out. This is just life. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. You spoke to my heart right there.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is, Pete. There's a saying, right, that, when you love what you do, you don't have to work a day in your life.
Yep.
Because it just is your life. And I feel very grateful. And yes, spirituality is a huge part of it. I'm very accepting of whatever it is that is my path. And I'm not attached to any specific outcome or anything that I need to, achieve anymore. I used to be much more ego driven. And I wrote a book. I have to finalize a few chapters. That's why it's not published yet, but it's coming soon. And it's called Becoming an Alpha and Letting It All Go, because it started as a book about, being a founder. And it finished as a book of waking up and finding the spiritual path and how, the things that mattered don't really matter as much. And it's really interesting to kind of like just see the voice change from, 10 years ago to today. And, how it was much more ego driven at the beginning and a lot more spirit driven now. So I'm happy that, this is the life that I'm building for myself.
And is the place where you are living that in Hawaii, does that have anything to do with the spirituality?
Yeah, I ended up here as God wanted me here. That's the only way to explain it, because it's completely unplanned. I've never thought of myself living in an island. Always thought of myself living in a big city, but it's such a special place. And, the energy is just so amazing. There was a day the other day that I saw 6 rainbows.
Wow. No, I hear you. But any words of advice to startup founders who may want to join you there?
No place is perfect for every person, right? Everybody has their own perfect places. I don't know if you're into astrology at all, but there's something called astrocartography, and it can run all of your different planetary lines over the globe and say the best places that are made for you, Pete.
Okay.
Is maybe for you, it's not Hawaii. Maybe it's, it is Dublin, or maybe it is somewhere else. So it would be very interesting for every single person to take a closer look into, I really love astrology. I have a spiritual advisor on staff in the company, and she works with every new hire to see where they fit in by pulling up their natal chart and seeing what are their attributes, what are their weaknesses, et cetera, so that we can pair together well in teams. And I do the same thing with me in my transits and good times to launch projects, times to wait, et cetera, so that everything is well oiled within, the universal path.
Yep. No, I hear you. Well, and I know there's a little story about a surrender tattoo. Can you tell me that?
Yeah. So, I actually have 2 phrases, right? In one arm, I have the first part of the journey, which was the only way out is through. And I got that in 2022, that for a lot of people in crypto was a very hard year.
Yeah.
And it was, it really held me strong. I would just look at that tattoo when things were really rough and, keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
And then as kind of I went a little deeper into the spiritual path, I listened to a book, which to this day, I think maybe the best book I've ever listened to, called The Surrender Experiment with Michael Singer. He's the author of The Untethered Soul as well. But my suggestion is, if you haven't read it, listen to it on Audible, because it is him narrating it. So it's
Cool.
pretty dope. Just listening to his journey and every kind of different turn that life took upon him and how perfect things were when he was just like fully open to receiving whatever it is that was his path with zero to no attachments. I knew that's where I wanted to get. I'm not there yet, but I'm much better than I was. And, I think that's part of the spiritual path. A little bit better every single day, and not looking at problems as problems, but as opportunities to learn.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you on that. And that as I think each passing year, I become more and more conscious of that myself. And that it's just when things kind of get heavy and there's a lot going on and it feels like a lot of pressure, just going outside for that walk and looking up at the sky and remembering how small of a speck you are on the fleck of the nail of the universe is just comforting to know that, hey, there's a ton of other things out there in the world that are far more important than whatever it is that you're going through today.
100%. You're a tiny part, but also understanding that a tiny part can have huge impact. And that's why you should always lead by example and prioritize yourself. I think the analogy of the airplane mask, right? That you should always put your mask on before helping children, because or else you may faint and not be able to help the child. And then you both die. If we are all kind of like accountable to our personal behavior and to putting our best foot forward and to, feeling good and leading with love and leading by example, we can raise the Earth's vibration and we can wake people up collectively.
Definitely. We learned a lot about you in this chat, Manu, and I'm going to round this out where I round out all conversations on this podcast, which is, what is one thing that people would not expect to know about you?
One thing that people would not expect to know about me. I'm actually pretty shy at times, because I'm so outgoing, but I can get very introspective and I can disappear for days or weeks, etc. And people don't usually expect that kind of behavior because they just assume that I'm a social butterfly, but I need alone time a lot more than your average person, actually.
Classic introvert.
Well, extrovert, introvert.
Well, the measuring moment is that, do you recharge with groups of people or do you recharge on your own solo?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know that. I'm a classic introvert then.
You are. You are. I recharge with others. You put me in a room with like 25, 30 people. I just get so much energy out of that.
Yeah. I'm a manifester in my human design. And it's, manifestors are very rare kind of like type of persona. We're like fire starters, right? We do that first burst of energy that starts the movement. But usually we need long periods of rest after we expand so much energy.
Absolutely. I hear that. Well, listen, Manu, thank you for coming on to the show. We will keep you as just Manu for now and in stealth mode still. And
love that.
Such a wonderful conversation. And can't wait to see this hit it. Okay.
Can't wait to see it. And we'll chat soon, Pete. Thanks so much for the time. You're doing great stuff. It's awesome to have people in Web3 like yourself that is, we're educating the masses, and that's how we get to mass adoption.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Manu for opening up her mind to help us figure out why she does what she does. Check out the show notes on moneyneversleeps.ie for all the relevant links to learn more about Manu and Sponstar. If you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it helps others to find the show. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early-stage startup investor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3, and I lead the Techstars Web3 Accelerator. There are plenty of links in the show notes on moneyneversleeps.ie on how to get in touch, so don't hesitate to reach out. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps.